What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, Sony did release their overall financial results for the past fiscal year, and that also included how many PlayStation 5 systems they've been able to sell since launching the system in November. And it turns out the PS5 is doing really well. It's actually tracking ahead of the PlayStation 4, and we're gonna go over that one here today. Also, we're gonna be talking about new Pokemon Snap as reviews have started to hit the internet, as well as the game itself, because it did leak online. I told you guys I would give you a heads up if it did. Oh, and since some of you occasionally ask about it, we're gonna go ahead and check back in with Google Stadia and see how things are going over there. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with PlayStation Plus for the month of May. Now, May 3rd, the previous month's games will be going away. That does include Oddworld Soulstorm, so you wanna make sure you at least have them added to your library. But we can see this card here for the new games that will be replacing those ones from April, starting with Wreckfest on the PS5. And then we have for PlayStation 4 games, Battlefield 5 and Stranded Deep. These will be going live May 4th, and I guess the big one here would be Wreckfest with the PS5 patch that it got, but I guess we also have Battlefield 5 since we're building up to a big announcement for the next Battlefield game that can, I guess, get some hype going. I know there's a lot of controversy around it, but there you go. It's the latest Battlefield game that'll be added into PlayStation Plus. So not bad here. Certainly better than games with gold, which was just, I mean, terrible. But so at least here, it seems more business as usual with PlayStation Plus, just having better games, it seems, every month now for a little while, as Microsoft's focus has certainly shifted more towards Game Pass. But either way, make sure you check these out May 4th. Also, we have a big sale that is hitting the PlayStation Network now. That's for Golden Week, and it's gonna be running through May 12th, and you can see some of those here. And of course, we'll go over a few games. Remember, if you see any in here, make sure you comment down below with some good deals that you spotted. But starting obviously at the top, there's Persona 5 Royal, certainly worth pointing out every single time at $30. Certainly a steal for the amount of time you'll be putting into that one. I also spotted Nier Automata at $20, pretty good there. And then we have one that I saw, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm not sure if that's the one that people were recommending to me, but it's $9, so maybe I'll take a chance on that one. Let me know in the comments if that's the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure I'm supposed to be looking into. And then I also saw Zone of the Enders Second Runner at $9. Certainly another good pickup there. Also supports VR. Also, if you're looking for a game that I guess a bit more value-oriented, .hack GU Last Recode is only $7.50. Basically a compilation of some of the older .hack GU games. Pretty cool there. And yes, we did at least have one PlayStation 5 game that was on sale, and it is Balan Wonderworld. That's right, it's down to $40 now, so I guess there's that. But overall, pretty good sale here. Over 700 games that have been marked down, so make sure you check it out. Oh, and the success around Monster Hunter Rise has been no secret as Capcom continues to put out press release after press release of going like 4 million units, now 5, now 6 million. Check this tweet out here, where we see from Alex saying Monster Hunter Rise ships 6 million worldwide, putting it ahead of Street Fighter V on Capcom's all-time sales ranking, 300,000 units until it surpasses Street Fighter II on the Super Nintendo, therefore becoming the best-selling single-platform title in Capcom's history. And actually, if we jump over to their Platinum's game list that they do keep updated every quarter, the last time they updated it was right at the end of December, so in the next update, I'm sure Monster Hunter Rise will be dropped on here in the correct spot that most likely will be, I guess, just behind Street Fighter 2, since their quarterly update would place it around Street Fighter 5 and Street Fighter 2. But with these latest reports, it would tell me that it'll be passing Street Fighter 2 here in the next couple of weeks, and then it has to go through Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and then Resident Evil 6 and 5 and 2, all the way up to what a lot of people assume by the time the PC release happens, Monster Hunter World at 16.8 million units. Wow. Monster Hunter's back in a big way. You know what? Capcom's back in a big way. They were in a lot of trouble years and years ago, and what a comeback story it's been for Capcom here with Monster Hunter World. I mean, absolutely crushing sales expectations. Then here comes Monster Hunter Rise. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony's financial report that they put out for this past fiscal year. I mentioned yesterday that we got Microsoft's earnings, we were going to see Sony's, and then we should see Nintendo's, I believe, next week. They usually all come out pretty much all around the same time as these quarters come to a close. Then we go into the next fiscal year or the next quarter for Microsoft, but it looks like Sony is absolutely rolling along with the PlayStation 5. And there was actually something really impressive that I noticed about the report that we're going to take a look at, but let's start over here with The Verge, where they say Sony has sold 7.8 million PlayStation 5 consoles as of March 31st. The company says in its latest earnings report, the number of PlayStation Plus subscribers is now 47.6 million, a 14.7% increase year on year. The fourth quarter figures bring the overall PlayStation business to a total operating profit of 342.2 billion yen. That's 3.14 billion for the 2020 financial year, and that is indeed a record for Sony. Sony's latest earnings report revealed that the company had shipped 4.5 million PS5 units worldwide through the end of 2020. That means that 3.3 million units were shipped from January to March, giving you an idea of Sony's current manufacturing capacity. And if you compare that to the PlayStation 4, you kind of align their launch times and their months, it's actually ahead of the PS4 by about 200,000 units or so. 7.6 million for the PS4, 7.8 million for the PS5. And think about back when the PS4 launched. I mean, the Xbox One was in trouble out of the gate. It at least sold well enough, I think, just from hype. But remember, that was Don Matrick showing up on camera telling you, if you don't like it, buy an Xbox 360. That's the system for you if you don't want to have to plug in a camera and be connected to the internet. And they had to backtrack on a lot of that. I remember the whole thing around the Kinect always being plugged in really, I think, freaked people out more than it should have, technically, with like cell phones and all of this being carried around with cameras. But still, you look at that, it wasn't good for PR, and Sony capitalized on it very, very well with commercials where they made fun of Microsoft's DRM policies for used games and some of the things they were proposing, which was very outlandish at that time. So think about that, 7.6 million. And then here's the PS5 at 7.8 million. Really, I would say selling heavily on hype as we're waiting for some of these big games like Returnal out tomorrow, and then Ratchet and Clank later this year, and then we go into Horizon, and then God of War shows up, and Gran Turismo, and Sony also mentioned that they are doing heavy investments with their first-party games as well as different partnerships that they have been announcing recently. I also want to point to this tweet from Daniel Ahmed, who made a very good point here from some of the data that was collected, saying Sony's Game and Network Service segment generated 3.15 billion in operating profit, also a record year. Digital and network services through PSN helps offset the impact of the costly launch of PS5. Sony breaks the cyclical profit loss cycle this gen, and you can see kind of the chart that Daniel puts up here, and you notice those bars of red. That's typically around the time, especially the larger spikes, when a system is being created through R&D, where there is a lot of expenses being pushed out without, obviously, the company collecting money for the product that they are spending time developing and then marketing and then pushing out, shipping out to different stores. Typically, you take losses and then you recoup them as you go along through software sales. But Sony is so strong right now with things like PlayStation Network bringing in recurring revenue, and even just overall software sales going from one gen to the next with the PS4 to the PS5 and their free-to-play games like Fortnite, which, by the way, we saw Epic Games and Apple kind of going at it in the courtroom. It turns out the PlayStation accounts for 50% about of Fortnite's overall revenue that they generate. So yeah, like you see the network service revenue that's coming in for Sony, and it's actually allowed them to break that trend of losing money as they build up to a console launch, which is super impressive. And the question of scalpers still comes up, obviously. I saw some people mention, hey, Sony should tell us how many people are actually using the PS5 and are connected to the network and all this. And to be honest, Sony doesn't care as much right now as they're just trying to get these systems out the door, but I still have a feeling scalpers account for a small amount of PS5s when we talk about 7.8 million. They're finding their way to end users, really, I would say, at the end of the day here. But still, 7.8 million PS5s, and it looks like Sony is looking to push out about another 15 million PlayStation 5s, give or take, throughout the fiscal year that we are now in, leading up to the end of March 2022. So we'll see if they're able to hit that with some supply constraints that they're currently facing. Next up, let's talk about new Pokemon Snap, because it has indeed leaked out online. I told you guys I would give you a heads up for it, but I will say, this is not terrible for Switch releases. Typically, they can leak out weeks in advance. This is about 2 days that's now floating around online, and it's not exactly a story-driven game, but still, new Pokemon Snap is a game that people have been waiting literally decades for since the Nintendo 64 version dropped. But we did get reviews yesterday, and I gotta say, It's about what I figured it would be, around an 80 on Metacritic. We can see that here, as well as several reviews, 38 of them positive, 5 of them mixed. My favorite review, I would say, is probably from John over at Nintendo Life. Did a very good job kind of talking about the Nintendo 64 version and then up to now with current times with new Pokemon Snap. Going over some of the negatives that I saw included things like not even really knowing what to do at times, kind of feeling lost in the game. All right, which level do I go through now to progress the story? And a grinding aspect that's been brought up, which sounds like it's kind of artificially lengthening the game, but it does give you a reason to continue going back through all of the different levels over and over again. And one of the biggest positives I saw is that it seems to retain the same feel of Pokemon Snap from back in the day. So I do like that they are still sticking with the overall idea of it, not trying to get too fancy, because I know it's still just taking pictures of Pokemon, but that's what made Pokemon Snap back then so interesting. Also, visually, this might be the best Switch game right now. Like, looking at it from the video that I've seen on YouTube and through these reviews and some of the still images, it looks really good. Like, Bandai Namco certainly got a lot out of the Switch here, but I'll have to see it for myself starting tomorrow when I pick that up. I'm gonna grab that and Returnal on the same day, and I'm trying to think of which one I start with. I guess you start with Returnal, right? Because it sounds like you're gonna be really mad playing through that. And then when you gotta wind down towards the end of the day, then I guess I drop in Pokemon Snap and start playing through some of those levels and just quietly and calmly taking pictures. Next up, let's talk about some of the supply constraints that we are seeing around the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and the Series S. I would say more so on the PlayStation side, although I do hear from a lot of people they're just not able to find a Series X anywhere. But it does appear at least Microsoft is trying to get to a point where they can have these systems more or less stocked up online or even in stores, maybe as we get towards the end of this year into the holiday season, whereas Sony is less optimistic, I would say, over the next fiscal year as to if they can meet demand for the PlayStation 5. We can see this here from VGC saying, Microsoft expects Xbox Series X and S supply issues to continue until at least June 2021. The company suggests significant demand for the consoles will be hard to meet. A lot of that has to do with the issues around just getting the chips and the parts to manufacture these consoles. And again, the interesting thing about this is we're hearing about these big numbers from PlayStation for the PS5, but it's not even in stores. All this stuff's really being ordered online. So I do wonder how demand would continue to spike if all of a sudden these systems were found in stores. They just started shipping them out to Walmarts and Best Buys and Targets. Would then the demand continue to rise? Because if Sony's only able to create about 15 million systems over the next fiscal year, which apparently, from what I was looking at, that's about the same as the PS4 actually in that same time frame when they got into the fiscal year after the launch of the PS4. So they're mostly trying to keep pace with the PlayStation 4 with the PS5. But I do wonder, how many would they be able to sell if they could just make as many as they want, right? Like, there's like, oh, we'll make 30 million this year and we'll see what happens. I kind of think they would sell all of those PS5s, and that's the biggest issue that Sony will continue to run into until this chip shortage is solved. And on Microsoft's side, June though, I don't know, because they said April originally. Now they've pushed it to June, and I'm starting to think that they're gonna then push it into like October, and then it's like, oh, the holidays here, demand's high again. We'll revisit this next year, basically. So I think Microsoft and Sony are kind of on the same path here. While the PS5 demand seems to be higher, they're still just unable to produce the amount of systems they need to, and I don't think it's gonna get any better anytime soon, unfortunately. So I'm sure scalpers are very happy, where people who are just looking for the systems so they can, play them aren't having a great time. In our last bit of news, let's check in on Google Stadia. So let me ask you a question. What do you know Google for exactly? I mean, a lot of us say, okay, well, they're a search engine. You know Google to type something in and they'll bring you web pages back with information and all of this. Well, Google decided it was finally time to add that functionality to Stadia. It just took like a year. I'm not even kidding. Check this out. This is an update that was posted by Google Stadia team where they say, search now on Stadia. More updates coming soon. This was an entire post on their website through their community tab. And yes, the big thing now is that they have a search field to search through the different games. And this is something that's been asked for a long time. I remember when the reviews were coming out for Stadia originally, everyone was kind of confused why there wasn't like a search function, but There weren't a lot of games at the time, so it really wasn't that big of a deal. But however, over the last, I would say 6 to 7 months, they have been adding more and more third-party games pretty quickly, actually. And it was becoming difficult to go through them and find the ones you want, and now they have a search function. They also added an activity feed, but I mean, that's the big update for Stadia, and it's so strange. If you read you read the headline back, it's like Google Stadia adds search function a year after launch. I mean, it reads like satire. So that's one of the reasons I just haven't had a lot of updates around Stadia, because like the big update is a search bar. It's like, great. Before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will Nintendo have a Metroid game to show at E3? And not a lot of confidence on this one. 64% said no, 36% said yes. All right, so I'm making E3 videos for all these different companies. I do think Metroid will be at E3 in some capacity. There's a 2D Metroid game that's been rumored for quite a while now, and I think that's the one that'll be there. It won't be Metroid Prime Trilogy, because that would just be Nintendo letting me off the hook, and Metroid Prime 4 would be cool to end the show with, but most likely maybe they'll just end it with a Smash character, and maybe it's someone really, really big, like a Master Chief or something like that, or Sora. Yeah, that's possible too. But I think Metroid will be there in some way. It might not be Metroid Prime 4, it might not be Metroid Prime Trilogy, but I think at least this rumored 2D Metroid is something we could see. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Zion saying, now start complaining about the infrequency of games added to Nintendo Online subscription. Have you seen the games they've been adding? Do you really want to complain about that and they give us more of those kind of games? I mean, I guess they're just free games they add in anyway, but like the big ones that people are asking for, like a Chrono Trigger, for example, or Earthbound, I just don't know if Nintendo's interested in dropping those in. Chrono Trigger is a game that Square, it would probably take and just drop on the eShop for $20. And I mean, let's face it, a lot of people would buy that because it's an awesome game and it's $20, and it would be a good version of the game, I'm sure, as long as it's not the one that they tried to pass off on Steam, and that was kind of bad. But if it's like a Chrono Trigger game that they designed specifically, like say for the Switch and consoles, then yeah, that'd be worth $20, and they'd feel like they're throwing money away by putting it on the online service. What I would say is it would be cool just to see a new system go to it, like at least the Game Boy or even the Game Boy Advance. That'd be cool, or the 64. Maybe that's what I'll complain about. Not necessarily games, but like a new system heading to the service. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's new Pokemon Snap. Did you see the reviews, and are you now kind of changing your mind a bit, maybe picking it up tomorrow? Let me know about that. And then what about the massive sales from Sony for the PlayStation 5? 7.8 million systems they've now shipped out, and that actually outpaces the PlayStation 4. And let me know if you've actually been able to get one of those PlayStation 5s that they shipped out. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.